All right, everybody, episode 449 with Mr. Robert Mueller is going to be brought to you by a couple different places. The first one is just Amazon. And if you guys make regular purchases on Amazon or any purchases, really, please consider thinking about Justin and Kate and the work that we do here at Extreme Health Radio. Every time you go over to Amazon and make a purchase there, we'd greatly appreciate that. It doesn't have to be health-related. And if you want to bookmark our link and then go up to your bookmark in your browser and then use that bookmark every time you make an order over on Amazon, that would help us a lot. Or you can just go to extremehealthradio.com and there'll be a link to Amazon on the right-hand side. If all of you guys did that, that helps us tremendously make all of your Amazon purchases through our link at every single time you make a purchase. That'd be awesome. We'd really appreciate that. And we're also brought to you by Sir Thrival, which is Daniel Vitalis's life's work and amazing store that he's got. He's been on our show multiple times talking about rewilding ourselves. He's got some really cutting-edge nutrients and products on his website. They've got colostrum, which is one of my favorites. I like to put that in my coffee drink in the morning, along with One World Whey, the whey protein that we use, and it makes a nice consistency. And the colostrum is coming from Amish farms. It's organic. It's raw. It's filled with all kinds of glyconutrients, macronutrients, everything. It's nature's first food. And if you go over to Sir Thrival through our link, we'll get credit and you can learn more about what colostrum is all about. He's also got pine pollen, elk velvet, medicinal mushrooms like reishi and chaga. The pine pollen and elk velvet antler are two of my favorites. They're very high in hormones and testosterone, and they really help the body to re-regulate and balance out your hormones, which is why I love them so much. He's also got schizandra, but the reishi and chaga are awesome too because they're dual extracted using alcohol, organic grape alcohol, as well as the water extraction. So you're getting both of those constituents in one product. Super powerful stuff. I'd highly recommend going over there through our link and learning more about what he's got going on at Sir Thrival. So if you would like to support the show, go to extremehealthradio.com/449 and there'll be a link to Amazon on there as well as sirthrival.com, and that helps support our work. So thanks for listening, and let's get on to this episode. Let's see. Our audio levels are good, nice and high, which is always a good thing. I have my partner in crime back in the saddle again.
Here I am.
Miss Baby Kate.
Good to be back.
You don't like being called Baby Kate.
I think Baby Kate is a weird nickname, but it's okay.
That's funny.
I like it when you say it.
We'll call you Kate. You don't like Katie, though, but
no.
Kate is, I think Kate works great for you.
Well, thanks, because that's my name. It works out well.
Turns out that's my name. I appreciate that. Well, today we're going to be talking about raw dog food and the importance of feeding your pet very, very healthy food. And all right, so Kate, I haven't told you this, but I did a little research before the show.
Tell me.
Okay, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
I don't know, am I?
I don't know, am I? According to Anne Martin, who is the author of a book called Food Pets Die For and Protect Your Pet, the actual industry that produces all dog food and cat food is completely unregulated. It's completely unregulated. And many of these foods contain dead or diseased animals, roadkill, zoo animals that have died, animals from slaughterhouse floors that are unfit for consumption, that contain antibiotics and hormones, garbage from restaurants and grocery stores, other dogs and cats.
Oh, gosh.
And the cans that they typically come in are loaded with and lined with bisphenol A, which is a known carcinogen, along with the heavy metals that are in these. So when you're feeding your dog these conventional foods, I mean, we had a dog growing up, and I loved him so much, and he just got riddled with cancer. And it's no wonder why. You know?
Yeah, it seems like every person you talk to on the street, just had a dog either dying or did die, pass away. They had to put it down from cancer. It seems like cancer's the big the big killer amongst our pets.
I know, right? Cancer rates are rising, diabetes in dogs. It's just unbelievable all the diseases dogs are getting from eating these types of foods. I mean, not counting the water they're being given with, on our Facebook page, we shared a video of what's in tap water, and it's all these pharmaceutical medications, and it's insane.
Poor animals, man.
It's absolutely insane. Well, we are getting a new dog.
We are.
Who is on Kibble. Mm-hmm. She's been fed Kibble for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So we're going to transition her to the Barf diet, which is what Maggie is on. So that's going to be interesting.
Thriving.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this couldn't be more timely of a conversation, actually.
This is good. So we have Robert Mueller on the show. He's been on our show multiple times. His website is barfworld.com. Don't let the name throw you. Barf World, biologically appropriate raw food. That's what BARF stands for. Barfworld.com. He's the author of a book called Living Enzymes, the world's best kept pet food secret. And he's a registered pharmacist, and he's the author of that book I just mentioned. And he's the co-developer of Barf World's diets, their patties, their nuggets, and supplements. He's helped zoos worldwide incorporate the proper raw food diets into their carnivorous population of animals. He's consulted with hundreds of pet owners on how to improve the health of their pets. And we're just honored to have Robert on the show from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you so much, Robert, for being on the show today.
Well, good morning, Justin and Kate. I'm privileged to be on your show. I think you've given a good start of the reasons that people need to pay attention. So, in regards to what they're feeding their animals. So
I know. Yeah, I was doing
hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I was doing a little research, and that lady Ann Martin, who's got a couple books. I mean, could you believe? I mean, ground up other dogs and cats and. Obviously all of these, animals that are, picked up off the side of the road, and many of these zoo animals have hormones and vaccines and shots and chemicals in their bodies. And this is what's going into the cans that are lined with bisphenol A that we feed our dogs, and we wonder why they're not thriving. It's kind of bizarre.
Well, the current statistic is that every other dog is going to die of cancer.
Every other dog.
Every other dog. I'm surprised it's not even more than that.
1 out of 2.
1 out of 2. And what about cats? Do you know about that?
I would like to talk to you a little bit about the problems with cats today, especially. Because it's more of a travesty that we've got with feeding dry kibble diets to cats. Because a cat is a true obligate carnivore. And what that means is that it needs meat to be able to build what it needs for the energy level. And he's not getting it properly from the plant-based proteins that are being given to cats for several reasons. And I don't know if you want to talk more about dogs than you do about cats, but I have a major problems with the industry and what they're feeding cats.
Well, yeah, I'd like to stick to dogs if possible, but hitting on cats is obviously, I mean, so many people have cats, so we can talk just for a little bit about cats. It's interesting that the entire industry is completely unregulated.
Well, I've been in it 40 years and have not seen too many changes, except I would say some of the changes that have happened since the menu food scare back in 2007. That has opened the eyes of some of the regulators, and unfortunately, a lot of the regulations that have come down since that time have been imposed on the meat-based protein industry, rather than really concentrating so much on the plant-based kibble industry. They've really clamped down on the regulations in regards to the pathogen levels, the Salmonella and E. coli levels. Basically, what they've done is mandated a zero tolerance level for that, and that's like coming out and having regulations against pollen in the air. Okay, because these pathogens are present in meat, and if you're going to destroy them, which is what you do when you add heat or when you use processes like high-pressure pasteurization or sterilization processes. Now you've basically done to the raw meat diets what the milk industry has had happen to them by having to conform with all the pathogen efforts to reduce pathogens in the milk. So it renders a completely different product, unfortunately. So that's what we're living with today. And but it hasn't done any of the things that you're talking about in regards to what's being fed to a dog or cat, because they've allowed those levels to continue to use millions of pounds of rendered product. And when you take your dog to the vet and the vet euthanizes the dog, most times people will leave the dog with the vet. Mm-hmm. And what does the vet do? He gives it to a service that takes it to a rendering plant. So there's hundreds of thousands of dogs and cats and roadkills and zoo animals, etc., that are going through the rendering process. Now there's a big problem in that Ann, or what you mentioned that Ann didn't have in her book, is the fact that some of the materials used to euthanize that animal is not eradicated from the application of high levels of heat.
Oh.
Sodium pentobarbital is one that has been used to euthanize dogs, and it is not destroyed through that rendering process.
So that chemical ends up in the tissues and in the organs and everything of the animal that gets killed.
That's correct.
Even though it's been through the high heat process.
That's right. And so what you have are small residues of sodium pentobarbital that are still able to be found in the diets.
Now, wouldn't people say at this point, well, the levels are so low and the authorities wouldn't allow for dogs to be fed food that have these chemicals, and just complete trust in the authorities and what their regulation is, even though there's not much? Wouldn't they say that the levels are so low that it doesn't affect the dog's health?
Okay, let me ask you a question. If you were to go fishing and you found that you were eating and consuming fish that had minute levels of mercury in the fish, and the government said, well, those levels aren't enough to cause a problem. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you ate that fish every single day as a continuous diet, do you suppose that you'd ever build a residue build up from that mercury in your body?
Well, I do.
The uneducated person might not believe so, but man, do we believe it.
Yeah, we believe it.
Well, absolutely. In fact, let me tell you how bad it got. I believe in several years ago in Canada, there were studies done by the veterinary community to try to find out why dogs that they were trying to euthanize were not able to go down with sodium pentobarbital. Oh. And they finally found out that the reason for that was the level of residue level of sodium pentobarbital that was built up in the body, and it didn't work as well.
Oh, okay. So the dog that is being euthanized has high levels of this in its own tissues because it's been eating animals that have been euthanized by that. And then it's almost like the bacteria, what is that, MRSA, the bacteria-resistant antibiotics and things like that. So dogs become used to that.
Yep.
Oh, that's horrible.
Whoa.
Yep. And that's just part of it. I mean, there's all kinds of avenues that we need to talk about that are causing problems. It's not only from the rendered material, it's from the substandard material. You have to understand that the kibble industry is the waste elimination industry for human waste. Okay?
So how do you mean?
We're getting rid of all of the human waste material into animal feed, and there's millions and millions of pounds of human waste materials that if we had to put it into burial sites to get rid of it, it would be just horrendous.
Wait, do you mean human waste in terms of
sewage?
Sewage, or in terms of actual carcasses of people?
I'm talking about leftover spoiled product from human food.
Oh, I see. Trash and things like that.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, oh my gosh, I don't think that would be very, very, I don't think that would allow that.
Human excrement.
Yeah, okay.
I see.
So,
I'm talking about that. I'm talking about the human waste.
Got it.
Wow. So
from
that.
the human industry. And so that's all allowed. And there's so much politics and large money that's able to stop the industry from correcting it. Because if they correct it, they got a major problem in trying to get rid of it. So they allowed a lot of this unregulation. Even the AVCO, which is supposedly the police dog for using the right ingredients and that in a dog's food, they're all in cahoots with the industry. They could make a lot more clearer the labeling requirements, or for letting people really know what's in the food. And if they did, they'd find out that they're allowing all kinds of humectants, the flavoring agents, the pesticides, or the molds, and all the stuff from stuff that are sitting in these storage bins, and the aflatoxins that are developed from that. It's just, they feel that they're letting a lot of this slide because they can't change it. The industry is so big now that the requirements don't allow them to change it. So now we've got 40 years, the 40 years that I've been doing this, basically is 100% correct in that it's a very unregulated industry. And it's unregulated in lots of ways. People are just not able to really find out what's in the product because it's not labeled correctly. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of labeling that's done on the competition that I have, even on the raw foods, that is completely misrepresented because the industry doesn't police it and doesn't follow up and catch the violations. But even worse is the kibble industry because there's so many different ways to mask what they're doing. Mm. And the items that they're using is all low protein, low ingredient, poor quality ingredients to start with. So in order for them to get the dog to be able to eat it, they've got to add flavoring agents. And the flavoring agents primarily are done with fat sprays. So you've raised the levels of the fat content in it. And the biggest violation is because of it being in plant food or plant-based food. The biggest violation is the level of carbohydrates in the diet. That is just out of sight, over and above what a dog needs to have to function as an energy component.
I was going to say, I suspect, this is just me guessing here, but I would imagine there's high amounts of soy and wheat and kibble and dried kibble. Is that correct?
Primarily high levels of corn and soy.
Corn and soy.
Okay. In fact, some of the most prescription dog food formulations, the first 4 or 5 ingredients are either corn, soy, wheat, all plant-based ingredients of low quality. And it's just amazing. We get into the wheat gluten problems, but most important is the carbohydrate levels. If I asked you, what do you think the average carbohydrate level is in dry dog food, what would you answer it?
The average carbohydrate level? Gosh, I have no idea. You mean in terms of percentage or grams or?
Percentage.
Oh, gosh.
70?
70, maybe 50, 70%?
It's 40 to 50% carbohydrates. Mm.
And sometimes that's all a dog will get is just pure dry kibble.
Well, that's right. Mm-hmm. And that brings up the next level of problems is the level of water. Because the kibble diets are about 10% water content in comparison to the raw meat diets that are 70% water. Mm-hmm. Okay. So back on cats, just for 3 seconds, if you feed a cat a dry diet that's 10% level of water, that cat is in a natural state of dehydration every single day of its life. Mm-hmm. And when you drink water from the bowl, it does not assimilate through the body anywhere near as well as the water that's contained in the diet. So that cat that's an obligate carnivore eating a 10% level of water in its diet in a dehydrated state, that's why the cat levels of the feline urological syndrome, the FUS, the crystal formations and the problems that we've got with diabetes and everything in that regard is all relative to the carbohydrate levels and water levels in these dry diets for both cats and dogs.
Robert, do you know if a bunch of the people that go into vets, a lot of the times are the problems starting with dehydration? I mean, is that where the name of the game kind of begins for these horrible diseases?
Absolutely.
Mm. We got a big problem on our hands.
Big problem. You bet it is.
Oh, my gosh. So I love the fact, though, that we talked a little bit earlier about not all raw food diets are created equal. I think that's really important because of this hydration issue, because we had Maggie, our little 10-pound wiener dog, on a raw food diet prior to talking to you on our first show. And, you know, here we are thinking we're doing the right thing. And we knew it was better than, you know, what little we knew at that point about the Kibble diet. But, gosh, once we got her on the Barf diet, I can't even, I mean, I'm sure you hear this all the time. I can't even begin to tell you the vitality, her wet nose. I mean, all these things that seem to be even hydration issues seem to resolve very quickly. And we thought she was healthy before. So I think it's really important for people to know about this water content in the food.
Yep. There's two important factors to realize the difference in competition. Mm-hmm. One is the level of fruits and vegetables in the diet, mm-hmm. because the higher level of fruits and vegetables, it takes more of that diet to maintain proper weight level. Mm-hmm. But water level is extremely important. And like I said, I have formulated this diet like 38 years ago. Yeah. We haven't changed it. It works. When you have the right combination of ingredients and you try to base it according to Mother Nature's recipe, it does work. There's no question about it.
So on the labeling with other food, even raw food diets, since I believe, as you've said, those aren't regulated, the amounts of fruits and vegetables and moisture, is that completely way off compared to what they're claiming?
Well, everybody has their own ideas on how a dog should be fed.
Okay.
And even the worst prepared raw meat diet on the market, I think, is 100% better than any kibble on the market.
Okay.
Just because of the quality of the ingredients, number one, because of the carbohydrate levels at between 2 and 3% rather than 40 and 50%, and the fact that the moisture levels are 65 to 70% contained within the diet. So the dog is, one of the first things I tell people when they switch to this diet, you're going to see a couple things happen. Number one, you're going to see the consumption of water that the dog drinks is going to be significantly reduced because he's getting it from the food, mm-hmm. right? Second thing you're going to see, and this is a major point because the total comparative difference, whether you're feeding kibble or a raw food diet, is the proper utilization of the nutrients. Okay, the bioavailability, the utilization of the ingredients in the diet is so important, and you'll see the difference. If you got a store-bought kibble that you're feeding your dog, and a big dog, and I'm talking this is a major ability to see a major difference in the volume of stool that the dog creates. But from a store-bought kibble diet to a raw food diet, you'll see about a 30% reduction in stool volume. And that's major for a big dog.
Yeah.
That's one of the first things that you will see. The second thing you'll see is that the water consumption is significantly reduced. You'll see an activity level difference, and you'll start to see coat differences. You'll see the hair coat won't be like straw; it'll be more like a soft sheen. Mm-hmm. And the general health of the animal is the same way as if you took your children off of feeding them fast food every day and fed them properly. You're going to see an amazing transition. It's the same thing with the dog.
So, Robert, we're in the process of, we're going to be getting a second dog here, and we're very excited about it. A little 10-pound, what is it?
King Charles.
King Charles mixed with Cocker Spaniel. Super cute. About 2 years old, and as far as I can tell, it's been being fed just conventional diet. So what are some tips that we could use and other people can use if they want to switch their dog over to a raw food diet?
Okay. I would say most times, and unfortunately, a good majority of the people that come to our site and end up switching to a raw food diet are coming to us because their dogs are having some issue. Mm-hmm. They're having obesity or allergies. Big one is allergies, kidney problems, liver problems, heart problems. I mean, it's just crazy what's out there and the problems that these animals are having. And I probably told you this before in other interviews, but with all the times that I've spent talking to people, I've got it figured out that most of the health problems that develop in these animals are coming at about the 5-year point. After 5 years of continuous feeding on kibble, we see all the problems starting. Mm-hmm. So then it's a matter of trying to reverse these scenarios. And, we gotta feed the animal differently. We gotta get them healthy. We gotta, reduce the, immune system problems that have developed over the 5-year period of time. The body's built up, several levels of toxins that have to be eliminated from the body. And that brings up a big point because a lot of people, when they start on the raw diet, they don't give it enough time. They don't realize it's taken 5 years or so for the body to develop this problem, and now they expect in 30 days that the situation is going to be reversed. I almost insist that there's a minimum of 90 days to allow the body to detox, get rid of the poisons so that we can start to build that immune system. And
when you do that, are you more or less giving the dog sort of a hybrid diet and gradually increasing the raw food and decreasing the conventional food?
No, 95% of the time, unless there's a severe immune system depression situation, then I'll start on a slow introduction. But 95% of the time, we can instantly convert them right over.
Oh, convert them 100%?
To just 100%, just switch it right over to the raw meat.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. If it's a slow conversion that needs to be done, then we progress it over about a 10-day period of time. And each day increase that percentage another 10%.
It's funny that you were just talking about this kind of food, and we've known other wiener dogs that sort of leave their food in their bowl, and so it's really interesting because with Maggie and this barf diet that she's on, I mean, she just literally just wolfs down the food. She just can't wait. She's drooling. It's just hilarious to watch, but she just loves this stuff.
And we call it the pet patty dance.
What is?
We have a dog who dances that apparently.
Oh man, I like that. That's a good way to put it.
My daughter has a golden doodle.
That's so cute.
And it's a big dog. It's about 80 pounds. And they put 2 of these 8-ounce patties in the bowl, and I swear it lasts about maybe 7 seconds. That's it.
My gosh.
And it's gone.
Oh my goodness.
I love it.
That is hilarious. Yeah, because I could understand, if you're a dog and you're being fed horrible food and kibble and just dry food, stuff that you would never find out in the wild, stuff that's completely unnatural. I mean, I would imagine that they would eat some and just say, I don't want any more.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch our new dog because the people we're adopting her from, we said, how interested is she in eating? She goes, I just put out, the kibble, and she's not that interested. When she comes and goes from it, she'll eat when she's hungry. And we thought, oh my gosh, watching this dog switch over to barf is going to be so fascinating. It's just going to be gone in 5 seconds.
I bet.
lot of people get a little bit fooled because of the fat sprays that they use to distinguish and add the palatability factor back into a bland diet. Okay, so they get the dog pretty well addicted to these flavoring enhancements. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when we convert back to the raw meat diet, it isn't as spectacular as you might think, and that's because of these fat sprays that they use on the dry diet.
So what are these fat sprays? They're like these chemicals they're spraying on the food that just get dogs more addicted and want to eat it?
Well, you have to understand the normal kibble process. There's two heat processings that ingredient goes through. The first process is through the rendering, which is really high heat processing to get that dried material from that fat or from that material. Then the extrusion process is the second time that product has been heated. So we've already started out with a basic cereal product that's very, very bland to begin with, but then after heat processing it 2 times, it becomes very bland. If they fed that process without adding the fat sprays and the flavoring enhancements to it, the dog probably would never eat it. It's that bland. So that's why I'm saying it's the additives that they add to this stuff that may disrupt them from taking to the raw food right away. But most times they really love the raw food and they really, really go towards it.
It's kind of a joke, but it reminds me of what Starbucks seems to do to their coffee. It does seem like there's some more addictive qualities that's going on there for people. But okay, that's really good to know, because we were just thinking, oh, this dog's going to love that, but we won't lose heart if it takes a while for her to grow on the diet. Because with Maggie, she was already going from a raw to the barf. So this is a whole new territory for us. So that's great to kind of...
Well, I've got a lot of tips for people that are having problems getting their dog converted over to it.
Yes. Can you share some?
Yeah. If you have that kind of a problem, a lot of times it's what I call it is training the trainer.
Okay.
The dog's kind of trying to train the trainer to give me some of that flavor stuff back, and you've got to be a little bit more enforcement minded to be able to get the dog to go on it. So if we've got some that aren't going to it too well, we say put the food out there. If it's not consumed within the first 5 minutes, then you take it away and you put it back in the refrigerator and you set it out again for the second time. And then eventually they'll start to realize that if they don't eat their food, they're not going to get it. So that's one tip.
Okay.
There's we've got some products that we do sprinkle on the food, which is an enhancement. We're doing to the raw food what the other companies are doing for Kibble to make it, taste better. But that's an encouragement. And I even hate to recommend this one, and that's to heat it up a little bit. But heating it up a little bit will change the consistency of the diet. Sometimes it's a consistency situation. They'll take to it a little bit better. We can do other things. Adding a little baby food to it sometimes will encourage them to eat it. That's just to get them started on it and then back off from it.
Gotcha.
We've got a whole site that talks the whole thing on different tips that we can encourage people to do. But I would say we don't have to use it more than maybe 5 or 10% of the total conversions that we make, that we have to use that.
That's interesting. So, Robert, I wanted to ask you about parasites and in the food and things like that. I know people listening might be thinking that their dog's going to get some parasite if they eat raw meat. What are your thoughts about that?
Okay, the evolution of the dog and cat is not changed the physical requirements of what that dog and cat are able to eat. In the wild, obviously, the dog can't heat its food to kill any bacteria. So the dog has a higher tolerance for the bacteria levels. It's probably not a good one to use on your show, but when you let your dog out to your neighbor and they get friendly and lick both ends of the anatomy of the dog, they're exposing themselves to bacteria levels that they're not going to get anywhere near by what they would be getting in the raw meat diet. Because we do the same techniques in the human industry for manufacturing and doing the processing and freezing of human food. We do the same thing with dog food. So we're being as safe as we can possibly be. The government now is trying to implement us to go into different techniques to render a zero percentage basis for Salmonella and E. coli. There's a couple different ways you can do it that are not as bad as heat processing. One of them is called high pressure pasteurization, and that's a process of adding about 80,000 pounds pressure to the product, which will destroy all single cell bacteria. And another one you can use is ozone, which is another way of taking care of the bacteria. My problem with the whole process of doing that is we've done the same thing to the meat diets that we've done to the milk industry, and that's basically made a sterile product. And if you sterilize your own GI tract and then try to go to Mexico, I think you can realize, and probably have done in the past, will realize what happens, and that's you can't expose yourself to any bacteria from Mexico, and you'll end up with the Montezuma's revenge. Well, I suspect that down the road we will find that trying to sterilize dog food is going to do the same thing, and I'm afraid. I guess I'm on record to say I think we're going to have bigger problems with sterilizing dog food than leaving it with some pathogen levels that the dog is able to handle.
I agree, and I think that we did a couple shows with a guy named Agenus van der Planets back before he passed away, and he was talking about eating raw meat for humans, and he does this whole raw meat diet, and he was saying the exact same thing. It's his focus primarily was on the health and the gut of the human, not necessarily what we're exposed to, and that gets into the whole viral theory and all of that, the pathogens, and so I agree with what you're saying, that as long as the food is natural and there's going to be a certain level of bacteria and parasites in it, for one, Agenus as a human was not worried in the least bit about parasites in the food that he ate, and so it makes complete sense that if we're healthy and the dogs are fit and healthy and strong and vibrant and have enough stomach acid and beneficial bacteria and good gut flora, they're going to be able to handle this stuff, and that's what they were designed for anyway.
That's right. Exactly right. And I think that it's all down to the immune system. The immune system is the key to our bodies or the dog's body. It's the best defense mechanism that the dog has. So our function in building a raw meat diet is to build the immune system. That's what's deficient in a lot of these dogs that are coming to us. So building that immune system builds the mechanism to defend itself from all this disease and parasites, etc. I mean, all these problems that they're having with heartworms, and all the problems with flea infestation, the problems with IBD, the intestinal bowel disease, and all these allergy problems, they're all related to the immune system. If you got a strong immune system, you won't have these problems. It's amazing. And we see such turnarounds from people starting to feed their dogs right. You can't convince me differently. I mean, I see the results of what we're doing. And that's what keeps me going, I guess.
Absolutely. And thank God for your product, because it's really helped Maggie. I'm curious, what's the deal with shedding with the fur? Is that a diet issue that you've come across, or what's going on there?
It's more of a situation with the fatty acid contents. I mean, the omega-3 content is what's going to stop that shedding. Now, you can't stop it entirely, but you can sure slow it down. And the shedding is a natural process, and you through dietary means, you can reduce the shedding possibilities of an animal. That's normally a problem with the omega-3s. And that's why when we get into a real bad shedding problem, we have a product that's a supplementation product. It's our Barf Plus supplement that that we give, and that just helps to control that coat problem and the digestive issues problem and building the immune system. Works really good.
I wanted to ask you as well. We get a lot of questions about the acid alkaline balance of the raw dog food, and because that's something that we talk about on the show a lot. And but I'm curious, before I get into that, I want to ask you about the sourcing. Where do you guys source the animals for? It looks like you have chicken, beef, and lamb. Mm-hmm. Where do you guys source those animals from?
They're all sourced locally from human production facilities, human slaughter. Mm-hmm. No 4D material. 4D refers to down, dead, diseased, and disabled material. That goes into rendering, and that goes to the kibble industry. We do not use that.
Yeah, I've been reading about 4D meat, which is legally allowed to be used in non-specific meat meals in animals and animal food. And so 4D means what exactly again?
Down, dead, diseased, and disabled.
Wow. So that's like an industry term. People know what that means.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
It's horrifying.
Wow. And horrifying at the same time.
They don't realize that the material is able to be put into kibble. Mm. And that's why I say the quality of the material is far less in the kibble to start with than what we use in the raw diet. Because as a raw diet, we can't use that material. It spoils too fast.
Mm-hmm. And do we know about what the animals eat that are used in the food? Are they exposed to anything? Do we know about from the sourced animals? Do we know what their specific diet was or what they were exposed to?
I think there's going to be, over the next century, there's going to be certain experimentations and results obtained from genetically modified material. Our whole system of food in the United States, from what it was back in the 50s and 60s, has been depleted. The soils are depleted. The mineral levels are not anywhere near what they were. More supplementation is needed. And the genetically modified grain sources that are being produced right now, I've heard a level that like 70% of the corn that's used in the kibble industry is genetically modified.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Genetically modified corn, they've got these different fertilizers that are built into these genetically modified seeds and grains that who knows what that's going to create long term. So there's a lot that's going to happen in the future, and like I said, the dehydration factor, the genetically modified material, the low quality, the whole thing is just I don't know. The public is so misinformed on all this that part of our goal in our company is to try to inform, and through your radio broadcasts and that, let's hope some people wake up and realize how bad it really is.
They're going to have to wake up, or there's going to be no dogs or no humans or no anybody left. This is crazy.
I know.
Oh, people are waking up, though, I think. They are, and we're encouraged by it daily when we talk to people like you. So
I'll tell you where I'm being encouraged. 10 years ago, you couldn't talk to the vet community because the vet community was so totally against feeding raw diets. That has totally changed.
Has it?
The vet community has now started to really accept the fact that the raw diets are more wholesome, more healthy, can turn around some of the different diseases that they're not able to take care of with medication. And they're starting to realize that what they're feeding and recommending in these kibble diets are what's really causing the problem. And so there's a turnaround. So and now the population or the expansion of the competition in raw food diets with our competition out there. There's more of us out there, telling the story. So they're starting to learn.
Awesome. I'm encouraged by that because thank God. I was wondering, I was going to ask you if it's because the vets are seeing these cases reverse, by testimony of the people coming in and the the animals they see, or if it's because they're starting to hear more about it, or, it's like if they go, anybody can walk into a pet store now and see a whole raw food, refrigerated section, freezered section. So I was wondering if their vets are more, I wonder if they're waking up to the science and the history of the animal's diet versus just thinking it's this popular craze and having these
customers are starting to come to them that are feeding these diets.
Yeah.
And they're seeing the difference. They're seeing, hey, what are you doing for your animal? Keep it up. It's working. What is it? Oh, we're feeding a raw food diet. Oh, yeah, you better stay with it.
I'm so glad they're open to that because it seems like something they'd freak out about.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I'm sure.
They were freaking out originally for the parasite aspect.
Yeah.
I bet.
And E. coli. But, that's, there's a lot more recalls happening with the kibble industry than there ever is with the raw food diet industry. So that's good.
Yeah, no, I would imagine, just like you said, that they would have been freaked out about the parasites because they're so into the sterilization model, the bacteria is bad model, the whole model that thinks about all these pathogens as bad rather than integrating them into our life. So, but it's so fascinating to me that it's much like doctors where, you look at a dog eating a raw food diet. If a dog were out in the wilderness and catches a squirrel or catches, a rabbit or something, it's going to eat the whole thing. It's going to eat the entrails, it's going to eat the bones, it's going to eat it raw. It's going to eat it right there. That's what dogs do. That's what they're supposed to be doing out in the wild. And we're so far removed that we think, our vets are questioning whether or not a raw food diet would be healthy. It's almost akin to saying, if my doctor were to tell me, I'm not sure you should be breathing oxygen.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so like, how are you a vet? I don't understand. It's like,
well, the vets haven't had the training in nutrition, first of all, that they need. Second of all, I use this, going to a vet, and vets are well trained. They really are. They're well trained. They're not well trained in nutrition. And I say that going to a vet for nutritional advice is like going to a priest for marital advice.
I like that.
That's not really true, but anyway.
I like it.
There's a lot of vets that have good nutritional background and they've studied it, and I take my hats off to them, but the majority haven't been trained in it, and they're taking the kibble advertisements, and that's where they're getting their training. Mm-hmm. So.
Now, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, I just brought up the scenario of a dog out in the wilderness catching a squirrel or a rabbit and eating the entire thing. And I brought this up a little bit ago about the acid-alkaline balance. And that's one of the things that people don't consider, even with their own diets, when they eat a bunch of muscle meat, which typically isn't even normal for humans to eat just muscle meat. We would be normally eating some of the bone or some of the bone marrows along with the entrails. But a dog eats it all. And so the way we counterbalance that is if we have some muscle meat like chicken, you would have some spinach or vegetables or something like that to go with it. But when a dog eats your diet, it includes the bone, so they're getting this perfect acid-alkaline balance. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. It's the perfect balance. Mother Nature creates in their food source, in their natural food source, the complete balance, the right regulatory balance. In fact, bone has the exact natural balance of calcium and phosphorus that you have to have. And people that try to make some of these raw food diets, if they don't use the right combination of actual bone. See, we put in the natural green bone. We call it green bone. It's the whole bone, and we grind it up. If they try to use the rendered material like bone meal, of course, bone meal, is the product from what we talked about with the rendering industry. That's got a very high level of calcium, but it has very low level of phosphorus. So if you just use the bone meal, you're not getting the proper balance that you would get as if you use the whole bone. So, there's a whole science to all this stuff, and those that really haven't followed it and know what they're doing, they could put out some bad product by not knowing how they're doing it. And that's one problem that I have with people making their own homemade diets. I have no problem with people making their own homemade diets. There's a lot of good reasons to do it. They might have a good source and know their source is adequate and clean. They might have the time to do it, and they don't worry about how much time it takes them to go through the process. But if they don't do the calcium phosphorus levels right, now with young growing pups, we've got a potential bone growth problem. And we're going to be very careful. That's one thing that I will always recommend to people making their own diets, to be sure they monitor their calcium phosphorus levels. Make using complete bone material, which then becomes a grinding problem, doesn't it?
Right.
When they're all done, it's a whole lot easier just to call me up and say, "Hey, send me some of that stuff, would you please?"
Yeah, it's much easier to do that. Hey, Robert, we are having some feedback issues. Can I call you right back? Is that okay?
Sure.
Awesome. Let me call you right back and see if we can't get a better connection.
Okay.
Okay.
Weird.
We're getting some bizarre feedback on that.
What was that?
It's challenging to do because I'm hearing my own voice, and I'm sure as a listener you're going to be able to hear that too.
It's annoying.
Hopefully we can get over this. Let's try one more time.
We shall overcome.
We shall overcome. People have overcome much worse than...
You think?
Yeah. Then it's a little audio feedback.
Uh-oh.
Okay, Robert, are you still there?
I'm here.
Oh.
Okay, good.
Much better.
Much better. Yeah, we're not hearing our own echo. We were getting some echo from you and then some echo from us, too. Okay. I wanted to bring up, too, this the idea that when a dog would go hunting in the wild, it's interesting because they would naturally seek out animals to hunt that would be, I guess, carry the requirements that they have because their intuition would guide them and lead them. And so if they were to eat an animal like a rabbit, not only would they get the acid alkaline balance from the bone and then the meat, but the entrails would contain the vegetables the rabbit would eat and the food that they would get from eating the entrails of the rabbit. And all of this is included as well because there's vegetables, I think, in the barf diet as well, right?
Yes. What we try to do is mimic exactly what that animal would get as if he tried to eat an animal in the wild. Mm-hmm. And so the one thing that we monitor pretty close to the content. We want some in there, but we don't want a lot because then we lose the density factor of what requirement is needed to give the right energy level. So,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Robert, can I try to call you back again? We're getting some really bad feedback. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm so sorry. We'll call you right back.
It's this hotel here too. I don't know.
Okay, we'll call you right back.
Gosh.
That is so bizarre.
It's only when we connect to him because we're fine like this.
We may have to end the call because it's
so distracting.
Yeah, it's not so good.
Gosh darn it.
Let's try him again. Yeah, because we're hearing ourselves.
Well, we could try to wrap it up and...
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's a bummer because we probably could go for a few more minutes.
Yeah, because as a listener, when you're listening to that, it's hard to...
Right.
Let's try to...
Super distracting.
If it does that again, we'll have to wrap it up. Robert, are you there?
I'm here. Is that any better?
Okay. Yeah, it starts off good. It may be something to do with the internet connection where you are in your hotel. Maybe a lot of people are online right now.
Could very well be. I've had problems with my computer all morning. So.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Are you there for business or for pleasure?
A little of each. I'm here for Super Zoo, which is the big show here in Las Vegas.
Oh, that's cool. What is that?
It's a huge, one of the largest retail shows where people bring in new pet products and, try to sell it through the retail and groomers.
Oh, that is so cool. How fun.
Yeah.
Gosh, you have a fun job.
It is a fun job.
Yeah. What was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you, About your products with the beef, lamb, and the chicken. Are you guys considering, or do you ever consider coming up with other flavors? And if not, why? Or what's your thoughts about expanding the product line?
We have talked about that. Right now, we're expanding into a supplement line and looking at some freeze-dried product and maybe another extension, possibly into the cat end of it. I'm a little hesitant on going into the cat end of it, but there's been a lot of calls for it, and we may have to go that route. I've fed the cat collection in 95% of the zoos. It's not that I can't put a diet together for that. It's just, there's a lot of people that do use our dog diet for cats, and it works just fine. But I would tweak it a little bit to build the protein level a little bit higher if we did it for a cat diet, because that's what a cat needs, is a high protein level.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you guys have a whole ton of treats and chews and different... Actually, we're getting too much feedback here.
This is terrible.
Robert, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to cut the show because there's so much feedback here. It's getting, I can hear myself talking here, unfortunately.
Justin, let me make a suggestion to you. When I get back to my office where I won't have this problem, why don't we try to put another time together and we can continue our talk?
Yes, let's do that. That would be great because, I'm getting a lot of feedback. In fact, when I send you the link, you'll hear towards the end of the show what I'm talking about. But that sounds great.
Let's do that, okay? Because I always enjoy talking to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Robert. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Robert, for being on the show.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, have fun, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks.
Viva Las Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas.
Las Vegas had no love for Robert.
No love for Robert.
That didn't end well, but that's okay. I'm so excited. Let's definitely get a time to talk to him again, and I think it's so timely with this second dog we're adopting. I think it's so fun.
I know, right?
Like we'll be able to get her converted over and work alongside Robert and be able to tell people of our challenge that we did with Maggie. Remember we did the Robert Mueller's the best. He after the first show we did with him, he gifted us a 90-day
that's right
barf diet for Maggie. And man, I feel like with this new dog, it's like her nose is kind of dry and she doesn't seem hydrated, and she sheds a lot. So I'm very curious to see how this goes for the new pup.
Yeah, very, very curious. If you guys are interested in the barf diet, we have access to that in our store. If you want to try your dog out on that, there'll be a link also on this page, which is extremehealthradio.com/449. Or you can go click on the top and click into our store and you'll see the barf diet on there. And, we'd appreciate you going through our link. That would be, appreciated on our end. Is that about it?
I think so. I think that was really good, and I think that it's horrifying to know what's in the regular food. I love Robert because he's not just a guy pushing his product. He believes in it wholeheartedly because of the process it goes through. And I mean, who couldn't be quiet and stay silent about it? Such an amazing product. I mean, I'd be shouting it from the rooftops too, not just because it's his, but because it keeps our animals thriving and alive. And not all raw food diets are created equal. So I hope that whatever ears this falls on, people can share it with their friends and family, because my gosh, most people we know have a dog or an animal, but mostly dogs. And it's just sad when you get to that 5-year point, like you said, they'll start seeing massive deterioration in their health if we don't start feeding our animals right. So I'm horrified again and again every time we talk to him, though, to find out what goes into this conventional.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible, isn't it?
I seriously thought he meant that ground up humans were being put in the
I'm thinking, no, that can't be it.
He meant human waste is like what we waste, what we don't eat.
Because
that was hilarious.
Human waste, okay, they're not putting human waste in there, and then it's not ground up human. It's got to be something different.
Good thing we clarified that. That was great.
Oh, man.
Love his work. Love what he's doing. I would love to continue that a little. End this right. So.
Definitely.
Cool.
All right, everyone. So if you want to check out the actual page with the links to his website, it's extremehealthradio.com/449. And if you want to be kept up to date with all the shows that we're doing, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm learning that if you do follow us on one of those 3 platforms, not all the time do you see our updates. So if you follow us on all 3, most likely you'll be kept abreast of all the shows that we're doing, because sometimes you won't see all of our posts on Facebook, and then the same holds true for Twitter. So yeah, follow us on those 3 platforms, and you'll be kept up to date with everything we have going on. So,
and for a few pictures here and there, the new pup.
That's right. We have the new pup on there. Charlie.
All
right, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you know anyone that has a pet and might be interested in upgrading their dog's diet to prevent disease and increase their health and vitality and all of that stuff, I don't know that this prevents disease, but I do know it's much more natural. And we can't make any claims here, obviously, but Maggie thrives on it. We walk her about 3 or 4 times a day, and it's never enough. And she just thrives on it. So her coat and skin is great, and she just loves it. So if you want to check it out, it is extremehealthradio.com/barf, BARF, or extremehealthradio.com/449, and you can check out the links on there as well. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Hey, everybody, this is Josie, Justin's mum. Don't tell him, but I know he would absolutely be really happy if you would sign up to his free weekly newsletter. And don't forget to share this with all your friends. This is the buzzing bumblebee signing off.
That's so good.
Oh my gosh.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here